Hello, my lovelies! I'm Jenny O, the author with no last name, and today I'm continuing to talk about Star Stable Online and how not to make an MMO. It's important to note here that I'm not only an author, I'm a sometime peer reviewer, a development editor, a fashion designer, and a game dev who has lived in San Francisco. And for one reason or another, all of these are important, so bear with me. I want to put this first. There will be spoilers ahead for Star Stable Online and the original Starshine Legacy games. None of what is happening is the dev team's fault. Please, do not harass the dev team. None of what is happening is the ambassador's fault. They are PR volunteers and aren't paid. Please, do not harass the ambassadors. And when I say this player base of Star Stable Online are children, I mean most of the players are under the age of consent. And from where I sit on the other side of 30, they're children. Children with YouTube channels and big Instagram accounts doing great things, and still children. It's factual, not derogatory. Much of this information is alleged, unconfirmed, and yet paints a very compelling picture, as most of it reinforces each other. For those of you who do not know, Star Stable Online is an online, massive multiplayer game that touts itself as a continuing adventure with your friends. In Star Stable, you can ride horses, do quests, and well, that's about it. So, we've gone over some very major problems. Bad technology, aggravated by a forced weekly update schedule, and higher management that only cares about money, and while that is a problem, it isn't the real problem in my opinion. We need to face the not-so-obvious problem, and where Star Stable has either lost its way or never had a way. I'm inclined to believe the Forbes reporter. They had a lore book, so I'm leaning towards lost. Somewhere in the employee and management shuffle, Star Stable doesn't know what it is as a game. Sure, it's massive multiplayer, if you define massive multiplayer as a bunch of players log into the same server and play the game at the same time. Okay, it counts. It's not an RPG. It has no role-playing mechanics. You can role-play in the game and chat with your friends, but it has no real role-playing mechanics such as MMORPGers understand them, or even JRPGers. It's not a racing game. It might have over 30 races, but there is no story element to these racings that make them important. We aren't working towards a championship or competition or anything like in the seasonal games, or even Starshine Legacy had the competition story element. There are no ribbons to collect here, just arbitrary medal times you have to click on the game race board to find out if you beat them. You can't even keep track of which horse is the fastest and take in the race the fastest. They're pointless. Only there to go, this is a horse game, really! There aren't even any bonding mechanics for you and your horse. I don't mean petting the horse and getting little hearts. You can do that. I mean real mechanics that have a visible change in horse behavior or statistics. It's not even really a single-player story game, as the story isn't complete, so there's no middle or end game. It has no defined genre or target demographic. They have no cohesive or obvious brand strategy that encourages a second fantasy life in the game, or the game core value and game mechanics that support this game core value. They'd actually have to have game mechanics that worked blatantly. So this is where we hit my fashion design experience. I'm not willing to go into the clothing of this game because this game does have a fashion element to it, and I have designed clothes for the Silver Grade winery area with gear and makeup and hairstyles. That would be its own video. As a fashion designer, there are 3 major things I learned: target markets, branding, and costing. I don't know the brand for this game. As far as I'm aware, the last commercials I saw playing either on Disney or Nickelodeon were children players directing their PCs, riding the horses around in game with their friends. No real reference to the story, no cinematics, just come ride horses in this game and bring your friends, make friends type of advertising. I don't know if this game is contemporary fantasy or horror science fiction. And because they've changed the marketing to a middle grade demographic, but kept their story with the horror elements written for young adult demo, I don't even know the age of the player they're trying to attract. This is compounded, in my opinion, by the fact this game has no ESRB rating. No outside source has come in to evaluate the actual story content of the game and tell the company, and thus the parents, what age range their story is actually appropriate for. There are guidelines for if your game is E, or E10 plus, or T, or T plus, or M. And other companies follow these guidelines, but not Star Stable. They are distributing it in the United States. Why do they think they're so special and the rules don't apply to them? Because no one has enforced them. If I don't know the age, I don't know how challenging the game levels are supposed to be in this game, and I don't know if the style is supposed to appeal to kids or to older teenagers, and I don't know what game mechanics would be appropriate or what the player base would want. I can't create a target customer profile. I don't know whether players are supposed to hang out, what they're buying, or how big their disposable income. I can survey the actual game player base, but going off their advertising and website and then the game content, I couldn't tell you an actual player profile they are trying to hit with this game. Because of the harmless advertising, you are getting parents who are letting their 6-year-olds play this game unsupervised when there are dark and scary parts of the game that SSO will only admit to when they update those quests in the game that are dark and scary. There is no pop-up in the game to go, this next bit might be scary, get a friend, as far as I'm aware. I don't know about you, but I don't think parents are going to go through 9 years of news updates on their websites to see, oh, there are scary elements to this. Maybe it's not for my kindergartner. Then said parents find out another horse is an extra $30 because they're letting their 9-year-old play in Star Stable Horses app, and the kid wants to transfer their horse to their account in the game. And the parent thinks, oh, $5, and gets hit with sticker shock of 30, which pisses them off, which tarnishes their brand when the parent goes and makes a negative review on someplace like Trustpilot or Common Sense Media. I'm not sure what types of players they are trying to get either. There are different types of MMO players. There are explorers and achievers, competitors and social butterflies, and consumers and, well, griefers. I've merged a couple here for time. But each one of these player types wants different things out of the game, whether it's achievements, story quests, badges, virtual goods, exclusive content, PvP races and leaderboards, customization, helping others, networking, social role-playing, or breaking the game. And they can all want more than one specific thing, but they want the game to at least give lip service to their needs on a regular basis. Except griefers. You don't want griefers. SSO has a very large problem with griefers scraping the files for spoilers, glitching their horses to race faster, trying to hack their way to higher player levels, and breaking into unfinished areas of the game. You know, maybe if we had more to do, or they had a better teaser marketing and public relations strategy. Without story, there really isn't anything for achievers because achievements and badges are something of an afterthought. There is plenty of grind and collectibles for explorers, a huge cash up basically for consumers, and the social people are pretty much given a few lip service UI things and left to their own devices because there aren't a lot of ways to be social in this game because you don't really need to be. And with so many Let's Plays and lack of challenging mechanics or updates, there aren't a lot of players asking questions either, or needing to update the wiki. They haven't updated the game's racing mechanics, they won't even pay lip service to a coherent stat system for the horses, changing their speed at a whim, and then denying it. The PvPers are bored as well because there is no challenge to the game and nothing worthwhile even if you did win and stay on top of the leaderboards. Right now, this game is for consumers and explorers, but they basically spent 2 years having us explore the same bit of map over and over for just slightly different things. Explorers are bored out of their minds. Social people will find things to do, because extroverts always do. If there isn't something, they'll make it up. Like tarot cards and tabletop RPGs and in-game club dressage events and competitions and player-led virtual conventions. I'm not joking on the tabletop RPG thing. That's another video. The tarot cards are fine. I have no problem with fan-led convention. That's how BlizzCon started. The fan-made tabletop RPG thing crossed some very explicit lines of copyright and possibly trademark infringement. I can't even. So if you want to buy things and ride around in a stylized cartoonish world, reminiscent of WoW without the mindless enemies attacking you and less epic buildings, I guess this is your game. Branding and rebranding a property that's been out for a decade is a massive amount of work because you are fighting 10 years of player base and customer expectations. You ruin your reputation or change your direction of your brand like SSO is doing, there might not be any salvaging it. This is why most traditional publishers will not and absolutely refuse to pick up indie books unless that indie book is selling hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of copies. Publishers want the ability to craft the brand of the book. They want a chance to edit your book before publication. They want to craft the cover, the back blurb, and how they're going to pitch it to reviewers and librarians. They want the first rights. They don't want to fight with a crappy cover or badly written back copy, or worse, already written reviews. This is why, if you want to be traditionally published, the absolutely worst thing you can do is slap together a cover and publish your book on Wattpad or a blog to gauge interest. And this is what I feel SSO was doing for at least the first 5 years of their game. They were putting out the game to gauge interest in whether or not there was a player base for a horse-oriented game. Remember, this game was probably in production for 2 years before it opened. So 2009 to 2011. And in order to get investors, they probably had a 5-year roadmap, which would have given them to 2014. And then at the end of 2014, they opened Dino Valley, which was the last area in the map to have a substantial quest update when it opened. So it all tracks. Okay. And once they had the player base, and knew they had it, and knew they didn't have any competition, since the last Barbie Horse Adventures game came out 8 years previously from the exact same company doing Star Stable, they hired new management who saw the game as an old game, and instead of taking the $17 million and reinvesting all of it into the game over a year to bring it up to speed, they decided to slap some wallpaper on it and call it good, because they had 2 years of story to play out. And at the end of 2 years, well, there's a new management team. The first 5 years had consistent content updates and moderate and balanced monetization. The next 5 years swung in the complete opposite direction to inconsistent to non-existent content updates and extreme monetization. Now we're on a third management team, and the technology problems are no longer an easy fix without starting over from scratch, and the brand has been tarnished and lost. This has been a step-by-step destruction of an IP absolutely cherished and loved by an almost fanatical fan base that has more lore and meta and ideas out there than the canon material from SSO itself. And they are fanatical because there is next to nothing else for them. 2011 to 2016 really feels to me like the game was in an open alpha stage. They were testing the market, trying to get interest in investors, and using assets that weren't final products, and they had to know it. 5 years on an alpha is a little long, but not unheard of, I guess. 7 if you want to count the pre-production time. New management comes around 2016 to 2017, and they decide to do this revamp of the game's graphical style. By all rights, this should have been the beta. This shouldn't have taken more than 2 years at most. This would be upgrading the graphics and really honing in on their game mechanics, things that devs have teased, from new racing mechanics to trying out the horse, and definitely a main player character upgrade to match the game's style. Since the engine was at least 7 years old by this point, sure, it was definitely time for an upgrade, or a better engine should have been chosen in the first place. The longer your development takes, the more out of date your tech becomes, and the more you have to upgrade to get the game up to current levels later when you want to sell it. But they didn't upgrade, and now 5 years later, while we should have a working low-glitch game poised on the edge of becoming a real, actual, for the public purchasable game as the first expansion, we don't. Of course, they shouldn't have been selling an alpha game to the public to begin with. I get the reasons why they didn't publish at least a complete chapter of the game with the entire new South York County map all at once due to the, oh my god, I can't even say this without making a face, unproven female market. I get they couldn't get the investors to do it all at once. This very first decision to make it a buy-in alpha game 100% contributed to their branding problem. Their first graphics are like a shitty put-together cover for an author to post on Wattpad. Now they have to fight the bad book cover with their new graphics. Don't sell alpha games. And since they were selling it, it definitely should not have taken 5 years to get to a beta stage, and they definitely should not have taken the band-aid solution towards the beta stage, which now has contributed to this massive problem where the game needs to be remastered from scratch in a new engine because it has so many bugs and they have so many technical limitations, they can't do the mechanics they want to do, supposedly. This game is so uniquely situated in the marketplace, it has almost become the EverQuest of girl-oriented big games, with the problem there is as of yet no World of Warcraft to sweep in and launch this version of the genre to a global phenomenon. And unlike EverQuest, this game doesn't even have a chat system that functions moderately well enough you want to sit in the game and talk on it. The players have to, in order to be able to communicate properly and in a timely manner, use a third-party system like Discord or Skype, which is dangerous due to the nature of the player base and the sad realities of people looking to take advantage of children in multiple ways. AI can't replace the human element when it comes to chat moderation. They have a very rampant bullying problem. So the combined customer service / translation team / DM thing isn't working out for them to even have their players just stay in the game and talk. Basically, we're at the point where we don't want Star Stable to fail, because that would be a huge blow to hopefully in the future getting other companies to build girl-oriented games or indies getting funding to build said games. We never want Star Stable to fail. The biggest takeaway I got from the Games for Girls 2018 GDC panel was game devs who are making games for girls and women, we don't view Star Stable or similar games as competition. They're supposed to be our comrades in arms as we push back against the male-dominated game industry who thinks girls and women want 5-minute HTML5 games and mobile minigames like Candy Crush. At the same time, without a massive swing in direction that is utterly open and transparent, and Star Stable actually becomes what it claims to be, a company who cares about both the employees and the players instead of money, Star Stable is going to fail. It will be long, it will be slow, and it might hang out like a zombie. Like that one guy who was hiding in the bunker. Rockwell? Yeah, Terrence? They changed his name. But hang out like him in the bunker. Like many MMO games such as Rift and Fiesta, whose servers are mostly empty except for the old nostalgic diehards as the game owners who bought them out hope for the whale to come in with some money and pay to win their way through the game. The problem here is there is literally nothing to win. You are not paying for anything to win in Star Stable. PvP is some meaningless leaderboards no one can really see unless they ran the race. 100 in-game currency if you last the entire day on top, or more if you last a week. And for championships, a head ribbon piece for your horse. You can grind your way to some really good gear with stats on it. Find out what is the best horse for that time period, use your sign-up bonus allowance to buy it, and as long as you have a good computer with a good connection and they haven't borked their end of it, and an almost empty server, get yourself some ribbons. If champs are your thing, there, you've won. Nothing. And we can't win in the story because we haven't defeated Garnock. Even the exclusive magic horses don't do anything except change into pretty colors. The only real exclusives are the Black Silver Fox, which was with the Star Coin bundle in winter 2 years running. Possibly the seals, because the iceberg hasn't turned up in a while and may never come back, I guess. So anything on the iceberg, from the seals to the saddlebags to the gear and clothes in the store. Yes, this iceberg had a store in people. I know it doesn't make sense. It's just icing on a bunch of doesn't make sense. To the store are exclusive items. Supposedly the frogs are permanently gone. The pig pets haven't returned in a while either, so mostly pets who don't do anything but sit in your saddlebag and do cute animations. They have a history of saying, this isn't coming back, and then they bring it back, so I don't trust them. Which is good. I don't like exclusive items. I think they induce player rage, and this game has enough player rage. So, if you want a much more expensive version of horse, and in 3D without as many pretty colored horses, Star Stable. There is nothing to win. There is literally no pay to play. The only reason to buy anything extra is impatience and avarice. That's materialism. There are players now who have been playing some variation of the Star Stable IP for 16 years, and they are really no closer to defeating Garnock than the last Starshine Legacy game, where the girls destroyed their Soul Rider shrines in Pandoria to lock Garnock away temporarily. In fact, given that Concord is now a baby, a story decision I don't agree with and was obviously employed to push the free app Star Stable Horses, we are arguably in a worse position than the end of Starshine Legacy. It's going to be 3 in-game years before Concord can even be ridden properly. This is not actually the type of step back in the story you want. Unless we're going to find some magic feed to make Concord be an adult quickly, it's just a bad story decision if defeating Garnock is the goal. Because we can't fix Pandoria until we defeat Garnock, and we can't visit other realms until we defeat Garnock. Oh wait, my author is showing. It's disappointing and disgusting because no other game I know would be able to go this long with so much grace from their player base and still be here and still making lots of money and still have players defending them 10 years from the opening of their MMO. They know what they are doing. They are doing it deliberately and with intent, and it shows a lack of basic respect to themselves, to the game, to the employees, to the players, and even to the IP. So this is how you ruin a game slowly, like boiling a frog in water. How not to make an MMO. They showed who they were years ago. It's past time we believed them. But the question is, who is going to be World of Warcraft and come in and revolutionize horse games for women and girls, or games for women and girls in general, using Star Stable as a foundation to say, we can be legitimate players in this gaming field if you give us a chance. I know there are projects out there, and I have my own ideas. The future of horse games and games for girls in general is only limited by technology and our imaginations. Thank you for joining me on this very wild ride through Star Stable's history. If there is any interest in any of the topics I haven't outrightly discussed in this video, or if folks want me to go into more depth on anything, I'll consider it. Until then, please take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless and stay safe.